Hi, this video is addressing climate change and the issue of CO2. Okay, and I'm making it because I'm just so annoyed, and I am absolutely sick to death of this fuss over CO2. Now, many years ago, I was working for the Development Education Centre, voluntary, and I was helping to write a teaching package, which was actually very successful. And what a part of that was looking at eco-friendly energy supplies and looking at CO2. Now, at the time, I was fully convinced, I fully believed all the scientists that, there was too much CO2 and it was creating global warming and we were damaging the planet and we all need to stop burning fossil fuels immediately, otherwise, it's doom ahead. Okay. And to my astonishment, when I started researching it, I found exactly what's shown here. Okay. Which, look, Cambrian period. Okay, Cambrian period. Nearly 7,000 ppm, about 18 times higher than today. CO2 levels. Temperature. Global temperature, 25°C. Okay, in fact, if you look at the global temperatures, it's been 25°C. It's been above 17°C, the longest period. In fact, we're in a cool period right now. We're at 10°C. So I suddenly realised what they'd done, how I'd been deceived. Because what they did was they magnified very, very minor slight fluctuations around the bottom here, out of all proportion. Okay. Because the amount of extra CO2 that humanity's actually put into the atmosphere is 0.038%. 0.038% extra. So on that scale, it doesn't even register. It's like a little kink, hardly, in the line. But they've magnified that out of all proportion to make it look like this. So we're going backwards. We are actually going backwards. Okay. And, years later, I suddenly found out about Professor David Bellamy. He's a botanist, absolutely lovely guy. I always loved him as a kid. I used to watch his programs. Such a brilliant presenter. I just had a love for him, and his love for plants he's so enthusiastic, and he studied botany. He's a botanist. He studied prehistoric botany. He understands, and he knew that CO2 was a red herring. Okay, and it was only in recent years I found out why he'd suddenly disappeared from the BBC, because he spoke out. He spoke out. A man of courage, and top respect to you, David Bellamy, for speaking out. And we didn't get to hear him speak out, because as soon as he started saying anything that went against the establishment, the BBC typically closed its door in his face and refused to give him any publicity. Okay. Now, today what we're dealing with, you see, we've got this so-called man-god who's established himself on Earth. He claims to be really intelligent. Oh, he's created a computer. That's how intelligent he is. He's created a computer. Okay. And he's having a party. It's a political party he's having. Okay. And he's got us all divided about choices between so-called right, so-called left. Okay, so on the right you've got your outright narcissist, and on your left you've got your covert narcissist. Your covert narcissist is serving the narcissist. It's just that they pretend to be serving life. Okay, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what the left is, mostly, because the left is heavily infiltrated by so-called right narcissist thinking. heavily infiltrated, heavily oppressed. You can guarantee it. Anything that even slightly promises to deliver universal law of abundance and compassion to humanity, which is the law we're supposed to be living by, okay, that is going to be heavily infiltrated and twisted, and that's why it's filled with covert narcissists, people who pretend to be serving humanity, the humanitarian side of life, when actually they're still serving them. And it's just that occasionally, you know, people wake up to them as being liars, and then suddenly, well, we might as well just have the outright narcissist then, might we? And you know, that is as what's happened in America, to the extent they've got Donald Trump, and there he is, you know, telling people the truth that yeah, this CO2 stuff, it is a red herring, but you know, it's now become like a blasphemy to say anything against it, and that's being used by the media to suggest, you know, to show how crazy he is, because you know, he's saying this is a lie. And that's the thing about the man God, right? He does occasionally find that the truth serves his purpose, because you know, the scientists, bishops, who I call the fuckers, because I like to call a spade, and you know, there's a big difference between a fucker and a lover. So you know, the scientists that are supporting this right now, they are fuckers, okay, and you know, they were trying to impose a tax, a CO2 tax, and trying to get countries to put in a tax on nations for how much CO2 they emit. Okay, so yeah, suddenly the man God with all his money, your top your top narcissist, right? Yeah, well, he wants to save some money. He doesn't want to change, you know. He just wants to carry on as he is, making his money as he is. He'd just keep going like a cancer until the host was dead. And then he'll die, but he ain't bothered because he's stupid. Okay? The stupid man God has actually got less intelligence than the most primitive life form on Earth that began when Earth began. Because at least that primitive life form was living by intelligence, you know. Whereas this man God is living in a total fantasy, his own fantasy, you know. A fantasy that tells life, tells humanity women are inferior, children are inferior, animals are inferior, that normalises battering our mother with bombs as modern day warfare, battering our mother with bombs. And he's got millions of people supporting this idea that, you know, we've all got to be really worried about CO2, which is a natural emission gas on Earth, right? We've all got to be really worried about this. But meantime, we'll just ignore the fact that he, with his so-called weapons, are polluting the entire Middle East with depleted uranium that's got a half-life of 5 billion years, that's causing birth deformities. Right, so we can just ignore that. These, the so-called third choice, your Greens, liberal types, okay, you know, they're all supporting this. And at the same time, a lot of them even support nuclear power as a clean energy because it doesn't produce CO2. No, it produces absolute horror that it's unleashed into the Pacific Ocean now by 3 nuclear melt-throughs in Fukushima. Will this Earth even recover from it? We don't know yet. Because the Pacific Ocean is dying. And you never hear any of them talk about the rapidly depleted, plummeting oxygen levels that are happening on Earth right now. You know. And a third of the Earth's oxygen is produced by the Pacific Ocean. Plankton. Radiation from Fukushima is killing the plankton. And thousands of sea creatures have been washing up onto Californian shores dead or starving or sick and injured, sores all over them. But we'll ignore that, and instead we'll have an argument about, you know, CO2. And now it's about, you know, the President of America's ideas on CO2 and how shocking it is and how he's putting our whole planet at risk, you know, by not worrying about CO2. But we won't worry about the fact that our whole planet is right now at risk, not from CO2, but from the man god that put Donald Trump, that created Donald Trump and put him in power. And the thing is, you know, like I say, when it comes to the truth, people will find that they are either a lover or a fucker. Okay? And if you find you're a fucker and you don't like it, you've got a choice. Get with the truth. That's why we've got forgiveness. Okay? That's why forgiveness, Jesus came and told us about forgiveness. Because when you understand the truth and you live by it, that's when you can be forgiven. Because then you can be trusted, because you're living by the truth and you're living under God's will, Jah will, universal law of abundance and compassion, instead of the man God's law of thrift and austerity. And like Jesus said, less gives less, more gives more. To those who have more, more shall be given. To those who have less, less shall be given. You know, even that which they have, they shall lose. Because life cannot survive on a system of thrift and austerity. The universe couldn't exist on a system of thrift and austerity. It's abundance in compassion. And this is why, you know, again, Jesus is exactly right. They strain at a gnat while swallowing a camel, you know, and they will use the truth when it suits their purposes, okay, of a distraction from the distraction even, which is exactly what is happening now with the President of America saying, you know, this is a lie. He's telling the truth, but only because it serves his purpose, and the truth is limited to serving his purpose. Okay. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people, oh, well, Jesus didn't really exist and blah, blah, blah. You know, I do not care whether Jesus existed or not. Those words that are written were written by human beings, by human intelligence thousands of years ago. And that intelligence is intelligent and it tells the truth. So I don't care what name the person had, who the person really was. They were a human being, an intelligent human being that has shown to me that this man God is not an intelligent human being, and in fact is a more primitive life form than the most simplest primitive life forms that first appeared on Earth. Okay, and he's so stupid and primitive that he will magnify out of all proportion the gnat, while at the same time minimizing absolute horrors like Fukushima and bombing our planet, which is battering our mother, battering our mother. And, you know, Iranians have this story, I think it's called Anti-Bear, and it's about a bear and his master, and he smashes his master's head with a stone, with a rock, in order to kill a fly that's landed on his master's head, you know, and that is exactly what they're doing with their so-called weapons. You know, they are destroying our planet, and even with their technology, everything they do, they're destroying the planet to say that they're addressing a problem, right? But in actual fact, they create minor problems like CO2 to distract us from the real problems, because they know very well that if we start addressing the real problems, life will get better, because the only way to successfully address those real problems is through living by universal law, universal intelligence that created us, that wrote our DNA. Okay. So scientists who are all celebrating yourselves about splitting the atom and doing this and that and creating a computer, well, the universe wrote our DNA, so, you know, put that into your intellectual pipes and smoke it. And that is what they're doing. They are, you know, just lying to us and confusing issues and persuading us to believe that, you know, this is a very serious issue. When, you know, there we go. There's the truth. There's the truth. Reality. Get with reality. Get rid of their ridiculous, paranoid, schizophrenic graph. Okay? And get with reality. Because that is the truth. And we have to accept the fact we are living on a planet that throughout its history has had a fluctuating climate. And we have to learn how to be aware that these things are happening, that it's mostly due to sun activity, either a lot of sun activity or less sun activity, that a lot of dust in the atmosphere from volcanic explosions or a meteorite hit can also affect Earth's climate, you know, and we have to be aware of reality that we're living in, that an elliptical orbit caused by the precessional wobble can sometimes put us into an elliptical orbit that'll give us very deep ice ages. You know, look, average temperature was how low? 0. It hit 0, average global temperature. You know, so we know. So then we have to take steps, don't we? Because of what we know, then we have to take steps so we can get prepared. Not start blaming and dumping guilt on people so that they don't actually get with the truth. They're all focused on a massive paranoid schizophrenic magnification of a problem that doesn't even exist. So obviously life's not going to get better, and that's exactly what the man God needs. Us all distracted on problems that don't, on trying to solve problems that don't really exist. So we're not going to solve our real problems, because the way to address problems that don't really exist, and even by saying the problem doesn't really exist, just helps him to continue in his little paranoid, schizophrenic, socio-psychopathic, covert narcissist fantasy. And he's a he's a woman batterer, he's a child abuser, he's a murderer, he's a thief, he's a liar, he's a fraud. He's all of those things because he does not live by the truth. And like I say, when he does use the truth, when he does refer to the truth, it's in a box and it's there for him. Okay, and the minute you start trying to tell him the truth, you know, and why doesn't he want to know the truth? Okay, why doesn't he want to know the truth? Because the truth won't let him keep a slave. The truth won't let him oppress a woman. The truth won't let him abuse a child. The truth won't let him claim ownership of our planet. And that's why it's time to end all the political parties. This party has been going on long enough, and it's a mad, out of control party. It's a Lord of the Flies party. You know, it says the fittest of the fittest shall survive. Well, fit for humanity is intelligence. It doesn't matter how strong, physically strong you are, how much wealth you have. It's intelligence, and the fittest of the fittest shall survive, and they shall lead. And that's why a choice of leadership, it isn't about whether, you know, one person's a narcissist or a covert narcissist or a so-called green. Okay, it's about who is fit intelligently to serve universal law. Who can deliver it to us most intelligently? Okay, because the more intelligently we live, okay, the better life gets, because we start addressing our problems. And there are a lot more serious problems than CO2. And it's the guilt trip as well that is, used to keep the consciousness down. So people, I was feeling so guilty every single day, every time I switched the vacuum cleaner on, you know, every time I got in the car. You know, people live with, it's a real guilt, that they've dumped onto people. People, oh, I've got a very low carbon footprint. Well, you're not doing your job then, are you? Because life produces CO2. Trees produce CO2. You know, according to the Green Party, would they be happy to reforest the earth then? Probably not, because CO2 levels would suddenly rise. So, you know, we do need to start living more cleanly. We need eco-energy because, you know, the pollutants in fossil fuels and even gathering those fuels, it's not good. For the time being, we have to accept that the way the world is run, you know, people need a bit of time to be prepared, to start getting prepared for us living. So, you know, we have to learn how to, which we know how to filter. You know, we can run coal and oil-powered fuel stations very cleanly using filters. While we get our act together and switching over to the eco-friendly energy that doesn't, you know, because all the filters are going to have to be, they're going to be waste, and that's going to have to be dealt with, and we need to stop producing this waste. So we're going to have to phase it out, but we're going to have to do it intelligently. Okay, so that means establishing, getting rid of these nuclear power stations, close them down, and start, you know, burning fossil fuels cleanly, not worrying about CO2 at all. That does not come into the picture. You can burn fossil fuels, don't worry about CO2. Okay? But do it cleanly and allow the nations time, especially nations that are oil dependent, to, you know, develop their own sustainability, because we've all got to live sustainably, and we can, because universal law of abundance and compassion, and we will help each other. That's the idea. We help each other, and we understand that we live in a planet that, look what happens to global temperatures over time, and we have to be aware, and we have to always be prepared. Okay, so, you know, there are ways of burning nuclear energy cleanly, like cold fusion, and we need to develop those. So if we do ever find ourselves in an ice age, we've actually managed to be prepared and to, you know, sustain life while we go through those periods, because our Earth could be plummeted. If that happened right now, we are not even prepared, and probably everything on the planet would die. You know, and we are here. That's our job, is to look after this planet, because our planet is in a universe that has laws, and things happen according to those laws, natural things. And our job as an intelligence, a kindness to life, is to look after our planet, and we have the technologies to do that. You know, but we need to get real. We need to understand what is going on. We need to understand where we're at as a consciousness that has been evolving through time. We need to stop getting distracted by the lies within truth, the distractions within the truth that are being used by liars who tell the truth. We just need to understand, you know, like people saying, well, Jesus didn't exist. It doesn't matter, does it? The words are intelligent. It's come from human intelligence. Those words are thousands of years old. The understanding, the intelligence. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's what we keep doing. That's because that's what he depends on, us throwing our babies out into his world for him to control, and him to dictate to, and him to put his stupid, ridiculous thoughts into people's minds, and his judgments, and reward people who live by the worst of his judgments. Those who live by the worst of his judgments are the most rewarded, and the very worst of his judgment is the foundation of his law, which is, do as thy will. And today, their will has decided to make CO2 a serious problem. Okay, so, you know, it really, really is time for people to wake up. And, you know, as I say, that's the wonderful thing about the universe, is that we do have forgiveness. And if you find that you've been living wrongly, you know, then stop living wrongly and accept forgiveness. Start living right. Be forgiven. Accept that, yeah, you were born into this world, you were born into this consciousness. It was an antiquated consciousness that had a load of crappy, ridiculous thoughts that have all been feeding off each other and controlling others and living out their its stupid fantasy. Okay, for how many centuries? We're all victims here, and we all need to step out of it. You know, and we need to arrest those who are refusing, who are threatening to hurt people in order to hold on to their lies, you know, because they don't want to let go of the lies, because that would mean they'd have to let go of the slaves, and it'd mean they'd have to give rights to the women and children, because that's what it's really all about. His Dick needs, at the end of the day, the most basic aspect of life. So, you know, it is time for us to, you know, really, really get serious about our future as a species, because, you know, I am very, very concerned, and it is very disturbing that, you know, somebody like Professor David Bellamy, absolutely wonderful man, was just removed from our lives by the BBC because he told people the truth, because he's not stupid. Okay, and as I say, I didn't know nothing about David Bellamy, what he'd said, or why he'd suddenly disappeared from TV. I discovered all this for myself because I researched, and I wasn't even looking to discredit it. It's what I believed, and I was researching to confirm it, and what I found through my research showed me the total opposite. Right, and I'm not, you know, a professor of anything. Okay, and Professor David Bellamy, you know, he supports that, and there's lots of scientists support that. And at the end of the day, there's a big wad of money on the table, and every scientist who, you know, supports this CO2 and writes papers on it and makes a big issue of it, magnifies it out of all proportion, they're getting a lot of money. And that's the, you know, so you're down to whore scientists, aren't you? And David Bellamy's, you know, top respect. So, as I say, it's time to wake up and to accept reality, and to stop looking at their paranoid, schizophrenic magnification of the gnat. Okay? Stop looking at that and get rid of this camel. We are not made to swallow a camel, are we? In life we are, as I've said previously in other videos, in life we will swallow a few gnats. Be tolerant. Okay? But if you're going to spend all your time going absolutely crazy and balmy about a few gnats and smashing humanity in the face in order to kill a fly, well, I'm sorry, it's a totally stupid way to live. And that's the choice, you know, I mean, and that is the judgment, isn't it, in a way, that we do have to make as a species if we're going to move on up higher in our evolution. We do have to make a choice about whether or not we're going to live intelligently, or we're going to continue living stupidly with this antiquated dead consciousness that's infected our minds, you know, everybody's mind. And we need to understand that about everybody and ourselves. And as I say, all are forgiven who can accept the truth. Accept the truth. This isn't a problem. But the way we're living on this planet at the moment is, and the way we're using fossil fuels, nuclear power, is a very, very serious problem. No, it isn't normal to batter our mother with bombs, because that's what we're doing. That's what he's doing when he's, playing anti-bear, smashing the mother in the face because she's got a fly in order to kill a fly that's landed on her. Okay, that's what's going on, and it's got so bad it's actually normal now to see pictures of maimed and injured dead Middle Eastern children. It's normal to see black children emaciated, starving. Okay, this cannot go on. This cannot go on. And as Einstein said, all things are relative. And as I say, this CO2 problem, okay, it's a problem to distract us from the real problems. And now, the debate about, President Trump claiming that this isn't a problem, that in itself is now a distraction from the fact that our planet needs help, and that the whole shebang that is politics, that's governing our planet as democracy, has got to go. The party's over. Your fireworks, over. We've had enough. Our mother has had enough. Okay, she's had enough. And it's time to stop beating her up. And I'm sick to death of witnessing it. I witnessed it from a child, watching my own physical mother being beaten up, and the same thing's happening to her today. And, as I say, mother has given birth. On the positive side, we can say that we've evolved enough to wake up to reality and to lose the fantasy master that's been keeping us all slave to his will, and preventing us from living under Jah will, which is Jah's universal law of abundance and compassion, that Jesus and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them both, and upon us all, that they delivered, so peace would be upon us all. Okay, and that is the only way to bring peace. So, thank you for listening.